You know the vibes. Welcome to another episode of the Hoop Genius podcast brought to you by NBA 2K25. And it's myself, Mooncey, alongside me, Coach Brendan Suhr. And congratulations to our first NBA finalists, the
Yeah,
Oklahoma
we're
City Thunder. Coach Suhr, how you doing?
a good. Thanks, Mo. A deserving entrant. Best record in the league all year long. And then in the deciding game, as even though they're the youngest team in the league, incredibly mature in their approach to the game. And they said, we're not going back to Minnesota and mess around with this. And they took care of business in an impressive way.
The game was over before it began. 26 to 9, Oklahoma had the lead after the first quarter. In
Right.
the first quarter, the Wolves went 3 of 20 from the
20.
field, three
Correct.
field goals, four turnovers. You would
Yeah.
think, okay, we've had the worst possible start to the game we could have. Let's fix that up in the second quarter. Second quarter, 12 field goals, 14 turnovers. It just got worse and worse. Right now, the game's not even finished. It's 117 to 81, but we thought we'd tape the show anyway because nothing's going to change. So
No, no, we wanted to put everyone out of misery. Okay, see, again, I really love their approach. The guys, all the good guys showed up, and very disappointed in Minnesota.
Mhm.
Uh, they lack competitiveness. The thing that really bothered me was Ant came out shooting to get his stats.
This is
That
the
was
question I asked you in the end of the last
he.
episode. Which Ant are we going to see making the right play, or are we going to see him trying to put up those shot attempts?
He put up, and then Julius Randle in the second half did the same thing. So at the end of the game, you'll say Julius Randle, 24 points. Ant's got 18, but I don't know what he has now, but 18, but he's like
Yeah, he's
shooting
on 19.
33%.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
shooting like
Like
just fired him up.
Julius Randle had like four turnovers, like 2 minutes into the second quarter. I think that when he goes to sleep tonight, he's just going to wake up in sweats thinking Alex Caruso is around him again because Alex Caruso was just dominant on the defensive end. Every time Julius Randle dribbled the basketball, it felt like Alex Caruso was picking his pocket. And he's been so big time for this Thunder team. He's been the difference maker between last year and this
Uh,
year.
he's the X factor from a grown ass man that can defend. He's been there. He's won a championship. But the thing love about Caruso is he's never skipped steps. He was a journeyman college player, just, and then, didn't get drafted, G League player, and then, makes the Lakers
Championship in the bubble. Yeah.
as an undrafted player, but plays because, and LeBron, AD, and those guys love him because, you know what? He competed.
He still
So they
plays with a
loved it.
chip on his shoulder. Like he's a
Oh yeah.
champion. He's older now, but he still plays with that same intensity. Coach, sir, I have a question for you. And I feel like only someone with your knowledge of the NBA can answer this question. I'm going to give you a sentence and you're going to complete the sentence for me. Are you ready?
Do I get a prize?
This
Okay,
is the
no, I'm
prize.
joking.
You're here talking to me.
Uh,
The
yes,
o
it is.
the Oklahoma City Thunder are the best defensive team we've seen since.
In a long damn time. Okay. The thing I like about them is they remind me of the Bulls in that they were every one of their players on the perimeter was connected. They can help and they can recover as good as any team I've seen ever in the NBA. They're not one of the all-time elite defensive teams because they couldn't have stopped the teams back in the day that have dominating big men, the Elijah ones, the
Shaqs.
Ewings, the Shaqs, all those people that had huge centers and stuff like that. Mikhail Parrish and those guys with the Celtics, you know. But my thing always, Mo, is I don't ever compare eras. I believe in standalone. But in this modern era that we're in right now, they're the best I've seen. They are absolutely the best, and it's details, it's coaching, it's preparation, but most importantly, those players, starting with Shea, they hold themselves accountable, and that's what I love about them. They're as good as I've seen them.
Yeah, the Celtics last year had an elite defense. You've got in the
Hmm.
2010s, you've got the grit and grind Grizzlies. You've got the 2013-14 Spurs. You got the '08 Celtics as well, who were one of the best defensive teams ever. But this OKC team is taking it to a new level. And
Hmm.
obviously, it's a new generation of the NBA. And I think it's actually credit to Nikola Jokic for making them look somewhat human and taking them to 7 games in the
Hmm.
previous round because they have slept, walked their way through Memphis. They've rolled over Minnesota with no worries whatsoever. And when it comes to the NBA Finals, they only lost 1 game against the Eastern Conference this season
It's
on the
incredible.
road to the Cleveland Cavaliers, who have been eliminated.
That's incredible. Yeah, and I think it's going to be a terrific series against Indiana, who I think will be there. Uh, and because similar styles, a lot of depth on both teams, they do have home court advantage, which, usually teams in the finals, they'll win on the road. These guys, it's hard to win at that place. It's
Hmm.
really going to be hard. And so no, I was going to make a comment before Mo about, you know, can you imagine getting to the conference finals and your coach being in trouble? And I'm not saying I'm a Chris Finch friend and fan, I mean, he's a good man and he's paid his dues and all that. But this is what I mean. And this is not, I'm not trying to stir up anything international because he just got a brand new contract last year. He's financially secure. But we have two new owners there that just
Hmm.
got the team and new
Alex
owners
Rodriguez and whoever his partner
and
is.
Mark Laurie, yeah. And they've never been in basketball, either guy. One's a baseball player, the other guy's an entrepreneur. And, you know, you think it's easy. And all I know is where they were sitting on the baseline by the T-Wolves bench, they were embarrassed.
Mm.
And so, but you shouldn't be,
It,
but
it,
you just don't know how that's going to
yeah,
fester.
it's interesting because I feel like them not being basketball guys might be an advantage purely because they can be consulted with from people who know what they're talking about, in comparison to the Phoenix Suns, who were bought by Matt Ishbia, who played college basketball in Michigan, who knows basketball or thinks he knows basketball, respectfully, and then goes in and starts chopping and changing everything.
Yeah,
So maybe they'll talk to the players, see what they think of the coach, and so I think. Do you think that there's a move this team could make personnel wise before we get onto the coaching? Do you think personnel wise,
I
maybe a
think that
Kevin Durant trade or something of that
no,
nature?
no, they're in a very bad cap situation.
Hmm.
So people can't acquire Durant if they're in the aprons.
Yeah, it has to
That's
be a
what
like
people
for
don't
like
know.
trade.
Well,
It has
no,
to.
even if you're in the apron, it's got to be one for one.
Yeah.
And most teams don't have $50 million players to trade. You know what I mean? There's just not guys on your payroll like that. I don't think. And the biggest thing about Kevin, who I like tremendously, he's got 1 year left on the contract, and he's 36, going to be 37 years old, and he's been hurt like crazy the last few years. I think it's if you get him, now you're going to have to sign him to another 2 year deal at 50 plus million. That's a lot to take on for an older player that has a
Mhm.
ton of miles on him. I don't think he's a hell of a player and he's played well the last few years, and look where his team is. So I don't think he's an answer in respect to Kevin.
Yeah. And coaching wise, I don't know.
No, I think Chris is a good coach, and he should be fine. But I just the new owners in the NBA, you just don't know. You
Yeah.
just don't know.
Yeah.
Ishbia is going through three coaches now.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. And he was a basketball player
Yeah. I'm,
in
I'm going to throw
college,
my hand in the ring for
and
next
and
season when he
and
fires this
and
one.
who he hasn't hired yet.
Yeah. I'm
And,
just waiting for because I know
yeah,
12 months from now I'll be ready.
and Tom Izzo is his mentor, who's been at Michigan State like 45, 50 years.
Legend.
So
Legendary
why,
coach.
there's a coach with stability. Why would you keep changing coaches?
Hmm.
So you don't know. I hope everything works out, but it was a bad elimination game.
Oh, it was horrible.
And
Horrible.
and they, and let me also say this, Kevin,
124 to 94, by the way, final score.
and they have a terrific coaching staff of assistants also.
In
So I mean,
Minnesota
yes,
with Mike
excellent.
Nori and those guys there.
Yeah, Michael Nori, Pablo Prigioni,
Yep.
who's a wonderful
Knicks legend.
EuroLeague player. Yeah, he's a great EuroLeague
Yep.
player, and so they have good people over there. So, I don't think that's the problem. Uh, I think they can't hold on to Nikhil Alexander Walker.
Nope. Nope,
I
someone's
don't
going to
think
pay him
I
this summer.
no, but I don't think no matter what, it's like Hartenstein.
Yeah.
They can only pay him up to a certain amount,
Yep.
and
Yep.
so
And I think
and
that amount is less than like the mid-level exception, which someone will easily
which
throw at him.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So I think they're in a tough spot. I really do.
The Thunder, first team in league history with 4 wins by at least 30 points in the same postseason, headed back to the NBA Finals. And what's crazy about them making the finals, and if they do end up facing the Pacers, Keith Smith said today that it would be the first NBA Finals since the luxury tax was in effect where neither team was a taxpayer. How about that? They're spending below the luxury tax, and they're the teams left standing.
Which also shows you that if you have good management, you make good decisions, that you can run fiscally a sound team.
Absolutely.
Right.
But the OKC Thunder, who would be your MVP of the conference finals? Because that's a thing now. They have a Western Conference MVP. Are we gonna do the
To
obvious
me,
pick of Shea?
yeah, absolutely.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna say the man who guarded Jaren Jackson Jr. and then Nikola Jokic and then disrupted everyone, Alex Caruso.
Yeah, that would be like Iguodala getting it
Yeah,
when Golden State won, which was it should have been Steph Curry,
yeah.
you
But
know.
this is just the conference finals MVP. Let Shea get the finals MVP. I'm good with that.
Yeah, well, I just think I just think Shea was incredible. And it's like we'll do for I'll give him the best defensive player award.
Hmm.
And a guy that really holds his team together. And again, an X factor like few other teams have. What a smart pickup by Sam Presti and his staff, and an incredible, understanding of what you need as a front office guy to make your team better. I mean, it's a ballsy move to give up your lottery pick, your sixth pick in Josh Giddey, who's a terrific player, to give him up I think Josh is like 22 years old now. That's all. To give him up for a guy that's 31.
You want to know
That,
the
that take,
scariest part? You want to know the scariest part about this whole Thunder team? They currently have a player that they picked with the 12th overall pick in Nikola Topic in last year's draft, who hasn't played this season. He had an ACL,
yep.
but he's a two-time ABA League champ, Serbian League champ, Serbian Cup winner, ABA League top prospects, all ABA League team, and FIBA Under 18's European Championship MVP, waiting to join the team next season. Plus the draft picks they got this year, plus the millions of other draft picks that they got as well.
Yeah, I was really surprised they made that pick last year, but we called it draft and stash type of pick.
Yep.
They knew
And
exactly what they were
but
doing.
but they made that pick because they moved on from Josh Giddey and they just went to the draft and got another tall playmaker who arguably could turn out to be a lot better than Josh Giddey.
Yeah, I don't know when he's ever going to get on the floor, though, to be honest with you. But
Well, you
Sam,
never know in the NBA. There's injuries. There's all types of things that happen.
no, no,
So who knows how he'll figure it
Sam
out.
does it. I hope the kid recovers and he's able to play. That's the biggest thing. But and they get him, at a reasonable price, etc. Or they might, to be honest with you, Sam might trade him.
Yep, he's got so many options. He's got so many
Yeah,
picks. They've got
he
salary
re
space. They've got
he
so many
he
options of what they could
he
do.
does such a good job of managing his team and understanding. He really understands value of players, and so he and his staff, you know, I hate to say this, not to coin your phrase, but they really are geniuses as far as running and building a team. They really are, in
Yeah,
my
I've
opinion.
I've got them ranked as the second best front office in the NBA.
Oh my God.
I've got the new Kings front office as number one right now.
Oh,
Anyway, talking
Sacramento
about the
Kings.
Eastern Conference
Sacramento
Finals.
Kings. Scott Perry is elite.
He
Scott
is,
Perry is
he
elite.
is, and his assistant's pretty good too.
He's a youngster. The new kid they brought in.
Yeah, new
Yeah.
kid on the block. But I heard he spent the last 5 years talking to someone who knows a little bit about this game as well.
Yeah.
Absorbing some
Yeah.
knowledge.
We'll see. We'll see.
But let's
But
talk about the Eastern Conference Finals. The Pacers have the chance to advance their 3-1 up. Tyrese Halliburton, a 44-6 assist to turnover ratio, which is insane.
yeah.
It's like it's stamped now that he is in the elite tier of point guards in the NBA. Because here's the thing, the biggest knock on him prior to this run was his defense. We've not seen him be targeted on defense the way that Jalen Brunson has been targeted on defense. Owen Phillips put out a stat today. In last year's playoffs against Indiana, Brunson defended 32 pick and rolls as the screener defender. This year's playoffs against Indiana, through the first, what's it been, 4 games, he's had to defend 95 pick and roll. So through 4 games this year, he's defended 3 times as many pick and rolls as he did in 7 games last year because they are relentlessly going after him again and again and again. And I say that because the criticism on Halliburton's defense is he's actually been able to kind of hold up. I know the Knicks try and hunt him on the mismatch, but he's not been as targetable as Jalen Brunson has.
Well, I think the biggest thing, and this is what you're learning as you watch so much of this stuff, is the elite team defensive groups can cover for a weakness. And that's what the Thunder do with Shea, and that's what they do with Halliburton. They have so many elite defenders on every side of them. They won't let you pick on a guy. And I think that's brilliant. And then they by extending their pressure full court, they take time off the shot clock. And now you only have to defend for about 10 seconds, which is pretty good.
Do you want to know the impact that Aaron Nesmith is having on Jalen Brunson through this series so far?
He's using a lot of medications to sleep at night, probably. Yeah, I mean, he's just wearing his ass out. Tell
He
me that.
is Aaron Nesmith on the court. Jalen Brunson's averaging 26 points per 36 minutes on 40% shooting. With Aaron Nesmith off the court, Jalen Brunson's averaging 52 points per 36 minutes with 71% shooting.
Wow.
That's like 2 different players.
No, it totally is.
Obviously,
Yeah,
per 36 stats were a little skewed because the majority of the game he's on the court, right? But it
100%.
demonstrates the point. Nesmith has been playing unbelievable defense this series.
And the guys that come in to guard him, Shepard or whoever, Nimhard or whoever, O'Connell or whatever, they're pretty damn
O'Connell, yeah.
good.
Yep.
They're pretty good. And so, I mean, it's not like they're putting some scrubs out there. So, yeah, those are interesting, those stats. But all I know is at the end of every game, he is worn out. He is flat worn out.
Absolutely.
Yeah, which is good.
I spoke to a friend of mine today, my friend Chelsea. Big up to Chelsea. Also big up to Chelsea Football Club winning the Europa
Yes.
Conference final today. We used to
Wow.
winning Champions Leagues. We had to rebuild a little. But anyway, my friend Chelsea, she messaged me. She said, I'm trying to stay up for the game tonight. I said to her, don't bother. Save that energy for the finals. Because if OKC go up big at the start, it's going to be a blowout. You don't want to, you got work at 9 a.m. You don't want to do that, right?
That's
Wait for the
funny.
finals.
That's great.
So my question to you is, do you see Indiana tomorrow going into the Garden, which is going to be obviously OKC at home court tonight, but
Sure.
can the Pacers do the same thing that the Thunder did tonight?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. I think tomorrow is about New York pride. I don't know, you didn't get to see the shows, but the tickets courtside in the Garden are on sale for 100,000 per ticket for one seat. The highest last seat in the building,
The
the very, very
nosebleeds.
top. Yeah, you can't even barely see, is $989 for one ticket. I mean, it is at the New York
Do you
fans
know a
are
funny
not, they're
story?
just fanatics,
Seeing as
which is cool.
we had another blowout, I'll tell you a little story. I was once in New York with my family. My family lives in America, so I'm in New York with my mum, and I'm just at my hotel, and she comes to see me and she goes, Mo, who's Nick? I said, what do you mean? She goes, is this Nick guy doing a concert or something? I said, what are you talking about? She said, everywhere I went today, people coming up to me asking if I've got Knicks tickets to sell them. So who's Nick? And I said, I
Oh,
said, Mum,
that's great. That is
it's, it's,
priceless.
it's the New York's Knicks. And I have managed to snag myself a little ticket. And I said, I bought it for like $30. This was years ago, right? It's obviously $30 to go to Madison Square Garden. I said, how much were they paying? She goes, oh, they were offering me like $200. I ran outside the hotel looking for someone. I said, damn, $200. That changed my life when I was a teenager. I said, damn.
How great is that? Yeah.
Shout out
No,
to
I mean,
Nick.
New York, that's a great story. Then, I just, I just believe they're going to win, or they're going to lose very close game. That's all. I just think the intensity is going to be amazing. I think the league, frankly, would love to have another game. And that's all I'm saying. I think it's good for our league. Uh, we don't need a whole week off, in my opinion. So I would love to see uh, a game six and then that if game six ends, what would it be for Saturday probably?
Yes, it would. Saturday night.
Yeah, that would be cool.
And then it would be
That,
Monday for game seven. And then the
no,
NBA
third.
finals.
Oh yeah, game seven. But
Yeah.
if I think Indiana would win at home.
I really hope they win on the road. I would love to see that.
No, I'm saying if the Knicks
Yeah.
won,
Yeah, yeah,
then
yeah,
I
yeah.
think Indiana would win at home, and then we start next Thursday the 5th. So
Yeah.
yeah, that would be I think something very realistic it could happen. I think the players will and the Knicks will really show up in a
Is there
big way.
anything that they can exploit other than just having the crowd behind them and playing harder?
That's no. Just if they can get someone in foul trouble,
Mm. Yeah,
you know,
Nesmith in foul trouble early, or.
Nesmith, Siakam, obviously Halliburton. You know, I think you'll see an incredible physical style by the Knicks.
Yeah,
Like,
well, we say all of that, but Karl Anthony Towns is the one who likes to get early fouls.
I'm not saying I'm not coaching the team. I'm just
Yeah.
saying, no, I think they have there's a reason they're down 3-1.
Yep.
And I mean, so I'm trying to get one win.
Mm.
But the Knicks, that's all I'm trying to get. They're not going to win the series. They're not going to win the series.
I'm trying to see that Pacers, and then we have a completely even playing field for the NBA Finals. Both
Yeah.
teams get a week to rest.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter. I played in the finals twice, and I think both times, I think we started with 2 days rest.
You know one thing, Coach. We put a clip on Instagram where you were talking the other day, and you said I've coached over 4,000 games in the NBA,
Yeah,
and the comments were like, if this guy's coached 4,000 games in the NBA, that would have taken him 40 years. And I'm like, do
play a
they
hundred.
not know? Do
The,
they not know who I'm talking to right now?
no, 100 games a year. That's what
Yeah.
we play. Yeah, I mean, back then, you have 82 games. We used to play 8 exhibition games, so that's 90. And then, like, in the playoffs, sometimes we were at 17 to 20 something games.
Mm.
So we're playing 110 games, 115
Hmm.
games. Yeah, so yeah, that
No,
I've
yeah,
also coached 15 years in college too.
yep. The um the thing that I wanted to share with listeners today, and we had a blowout game, so I feel like it's a good chance to have this conversation.
Okay.
Yesterday was an anniversary of a very impactful day in NBA history that fans may not be aware of what happens behind the scenes. So,
Yeah.
Coach, I would like you to share this story with our audience here because this is a story that ultimately changed the course of NBA history.
Well, it's funny tonight. Tonight actually, I was really watching closely, and OKC was using many of the rules. So, 36 years ago, where I am today, the 28th of May, we were in the conference finals with the Chicago Bulls. Back then, we played in Chicago Stadium. We had split the first 2 games in Detroit. Game three, we were up 9, 10 points at the half. Second half, MJ only had, I think, 8 points in the first half. Second half, he went for some ungodly amount of points. He ended up with 47, I believe, for the game. And they came from behind uh, to win. I think we were up 19 at one point. Came from behind and won by 2 points at the buzzer. So with that, that night was very disappointing. Now, a team that had lost in the finals the year before to the Lakers by 2 points in Game 7 now was on the ropes, down 2 games to 1 against the Bulls, and Michael was spectacular. To give you some background, the Detroit Pistons were nicknamed the Bad Boys, but they had it was an elite defensive team, and I mean elite, the most physical team in NBA history. Uh, we had the 2 best defensive players I think, on one team, and Joe Dumars, who's now the president of the New Orleans Pelican, who ran basketball operations for the NBA for the last several years. And we had Dennis Rodman, who is, just an icon defensively and was the NBA Defensive Player of the Year. And we had those 2 guys guarding Michael Jordan. And even with those two guys, Michael was that incredible. That's why I say there's Michael Jordan, and then don't give me any other comparisons as
And
far as,
this is coming from his rival team's coach.
oh yeah, I mean, yeah, these were there were no hugs and kisses after these games. These were brutal, brutal. If you can go and Google Michael Jordan's hard fouls by the Pistons, you've never these were every foul that we committed against him were plays that you would get ejected from a game nowadays. That's how bad they were. And so anyway, at about 2 or 3, the game was in the afternoon, and about 2 o'clock in the morning, my hotel phone rang in downtown Chicago because cell phones were not that prevalent. And it was Isaiah Thomas, my guard, on the phone. And he said, "You need to come down to the lobby. I need to talk to you." And so you don't worry, you worry what happened about, did he get hurt, something, get sick? What's wrong? Go downstairs. And he says, "I've been walking around all night. We got to do something to stop Jordan." I said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, and he said, "We need to double team him every time he touches the ball." And so we talked about it. And over the next hour and a half, through Isaiah's input, I came up with a structure of how we could use a logical system, very similar to what OKC was doing with Anthony Edwards, of how do we double team Michael when he gets the ball effectively. And it was really, and so I'll give you that. So I'll give you the 4 rules that we had. Okay. Just so you can have a better understanding. Doug Collins, who was the coach at the time, ran a very similar offense to what you're seeing now with Minnesota. Um, a lot of one-on-one, a lot of isolation. And so we had a thing that anytime that Michael had the ball on the wing, either side of the floor, we would force him to the middle, and we didn't care. The next player who was near him in the middle of the floor would run and double team him as soon as he dribbled. First dribble, we didn't care if it was our center, another guard, and we were going to, and the
And
whole
that's
thing,
key because he only needed like 3 dribbles max to get to his move.
he could sometimes do it in one. That's how,
Exactly.
how powerful he was. But we just said, one dribble, we're coming right away. And the reason we did that, we were basing it on the fact that we felt he was so unselfish that he would give up the ball. That was our premise. That someone was going to be open, and then if Michael had the ball at the top of it, out in the middle of the floor, like where Ant has it a lot, that even though Michael could go either way, we would force him to go left just so we would know which way he was going. So we forced him left, and the nearest player on that wing in that area, we didn't care what position he was, who he was, he would run and double team him and basically let him pass the ball to the wing or to the guy in the corner. And then we would rotate to these open players. And then there's 2 other situations that would happen. One, they would sometimes play pick and roll with Mike, usually on the wing. And we said, if he does do that, we're going to trap him. And you see, OKC was doing that with Minnesota, every game. And then the other one that they loved to post him up because he was 6'6", 220 pounds. And they would post him up against Dumars, they wouldn't post him up too much against Rodman because he was 6'7", 6'8". But every time the ball went into the post to him, as the ball was in the air, whoever was on the foul line, what we called at the top, they would leave as that ball was in the air and double team him by the time he caught the ball. Again, to force him to pass. That was the premise. So we go to our film session the next day, and we share with Chuck Daly, the head coach, who is the coach of the Dream Team, this is what we want to do. And he says, "No, we're not going to do that." He said, "We got 2 great defensive players, and we're the best defensive team in the league. We're not going to do that." And he just squashed it. And then we got into our meeting, and then Isaiah and Bill Laimbeer and some other players, they expressed that they wanted to do this. Joe Dumars and Rodman were not very happy because basically you were saying that they can't handle him. And so it got very testy. And Chuck said, "No, we're not going to do it. It won't work. He'll destroy us." That was his stance. And the players basically begged Chuck, "Let us try it. It's going to work." And he says, "No, it's not going to work. but you can do whatever the F you want to do. It ain't going to work. And I was disappointed that he wasn't more positive with the guys because they were taking ownership of their team. And well, that night we go out there the next day, and sure enough, we double team them every time. They're surprised that it happens. And Michael passes the ball every time, and they can't make a shot. And Michael gets only 18 points, and we win the game. The next game, back to Detroit, we do it again. Can't get 20 points again. We win the game easy. And then we have to come back to Chicago Stadium. Michael, by that time, does what Anthony Edwards did, and he came out every time he got it, whether we double teamed or not, he shot.
Mhm.
He had 32 points, but we won by 10.
Mm.
And I said to Chuck afterwards, I said to him, why were you so negative about this? He said, the reason I did that was because by telling those guys it's not going to work, they were out there to prove to me that they would make it work. They took complete accountability, and a commitment that it was going to work was on them, not on us. And that was a brilliant lesson in coaching, frankly. But we had a great defense team, but the Jordan rules became very, very famous. And I ended up coaching Michael's two sons when I was in college as a college coach, and I wrote a book on it uh, on Chuck Daly after he passed away, and who Michael absolutely loved. And he said, and he saw the section on the Jordan rules, and because we're on a podcast internationally, I can say this. He said, those aren't those fucking Jordan rules. He said, the Jordan rules where you knock me on my ass every time. That was the Jordan
This is
rule.
what I was gonna say. You said
That,
these rules about when you're double teaming him. I'm waiting for the part where
yeah,
foul him comes into
yeah,
play.
yeah. No, and that's what he said. He said those were the damn rules. But it was amazing. But literally 36 years ago today was the invention of an innovation in basketball where we did that. But the key is to one player.
Hmm.
And I've now taught it at clinics around the world, from China to Spain to Greece to everywhere in the US, about basically how to stop a star player. And these were the Jordan rules. And it'll work, against Anthony Edwards, against him. And Mark Daignault, of course, knows this,
Hmm.
you know.
Hmm.
And but it's a commitment by really good players to get the ball out of their hand. So that is what happened 36 years ago, Mo.
Thank you
You're
for sharing
part of
that with us,
history
Coach. That
tonight.
is a fascinating story because, of course, that obstacle of the bad boy Pistons and the Jordan rules is kind of what made Michael Jordan who he is by having to overcome that obstacle that was in his
Yeah,
way.
he was, he was very, very frustrated by that because we physically beat him up, not punch him. I mean, just physically,
Close enough.
and literally he went out and hired, really, for the first time in his life, he had a strength coach,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
great
Tim
Tim
Grover.
Grover.
Yep.
Yeah. And Tim always tells me, Brendan, you made me a millionaire, because,
Yeah.
he got him, and then later on he got Kobe.
Yep. D
Because,
Wade. I just
you
finished
know,
reading his book,
but
but he had a
but he
bunch of
had
guys.
he and Tim, it was kind of his calling card that he got Michael from a very weak guy to a very strong guy, and strong mentally too, very strong. So that was the Jordan rules, Mo.
Yeah, so Timberwolves fans, don't worry. Anthony Edwards can bounce back from this. Um,
Absolutely, absolutely.
it's going to
Remember,
be
he's how old is he? 23.
23. Yeah,
It's ridiculous.
it's ridiculous because like I remember when I first started my career, all the guys in the NBA were older than me. Now I'm significantly older than these guys who are like in MVP conversations.
Yeah, 23 years old. I mean, Shea is 26. The prime Jordan, Isaiah, those guys, they go into their prime when they're 28.
Mm,
That's when they start to peak. And so these guys still are going to get way better, way better.
absolutely. And
Yeah.
Jason Tatum has the year off before he turns 28 next year. Comes back with
Yeah,
a vengeance, and
he's a phenom. Yes.
I'm just excited for the future of the NBA. There's so many talented players, and with the movement that we're going to see this summer, I think there's going to be a lot of moves around the league. Not so much free agency, but a lot of
No,
trades are in the
zero free
pipeline. Yeah,
agency. The free agents, good free agents will not move because they
except for
can't get
Nikhil.
paid.
Yeah, except for
No,
Nikhil Alexander
no,
Walker.
but he's not an NBA starter.
Yeah.
He's he's not a,
He
he's
may
a
he may
very
end up
good.
being a star depending on who
Then
pays
your
him.
team,
But
then your team's losing. You're not in the playoffs. He's a really good player, but he's not a starter in
yeah,
the NBA. But a sixth, seventh, eighth man are very good players. But he has a chance to get paid a little more. That's why he might move. I think he loves playing in Minnesota.
yeah.
Loves it.
The point I was making is,
Sure.
every time a young team does well, right? For example, like the Celtics last year, people are like it's the start of a dynasty. When the Grizzlies were like the second seed at like 2022, 2023, oh, the Grizzlies going to be around for ages. OKC themselves back in 2012, the last time they made the finals. Oh, they're going to go on a historic run. You don't know what
As
else
we
is going to happen in the league and how the landscape's going to shift. And also which players that we talk about, and we talk about Tate, we talk about Shea, we've got Luca, we've got so many of these guys. But which one of these guys is going to take a leap and become even greater than they are already? Or which guy are we not talking about that's going to enter the same caliber as these guys?
Yeah, we have a saying also that shit happens, and
Mm,
that's Jason Tatum.
yep.
That's what happened with Ja Morant,
Yep.
the next star in the league. Can't find him.
And we ain't even mentioned Wembanyama.
Yeah, Zion Williamson. My God, you know, number one pick 6 years ago.
Yeah,
Uh,
Zion
you
Williamson
know,
entering his seventh NBA season without playing a minute of the playoffs. I saw that on Twitter the other day, and I just thought,
isn't that
what?
amazing? This guy was virtually unstoppable, and you saw him as a can't miss player. Can't miss. So things happen to guys. Ben Simmons, two-time All-Star kid I've coached, two-time All-Star, has back injuries, mental health problem. And I think he's going to be out of the league next year.
I
Think
think
about
he
that.
did all right for the Clippers. He could be sticking around on the minimum.
He'll be no, he'll be out of the league, my
Yeah.
opinion. Yeah, because no one's going to take a chance on a guaranteed contract with him,
Mm.
even at minimum, because he can't. They had less than $1 million investment on him at the end of the year.
Yeah.
It was, that was an insurance policy. And so I don't expect, and he didn't even get into game seven.
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, so
It's
I
going to be
think
an interesting summer.
yeah. And he's got Bernie Lee, who is, guess whose agent?
Who's?
Golden State,
Uh-huh.
Miami Heat, Jimmy
Jimmy
Butler.
Butler. Yeah.
He left Clutch to go to this guy. So
If he stayed with Clutch, he'd probably still be, he might sign for the Lakers.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. So, a lot can happen. I think we're going to see tons of movement of players getting traded. I think you're absolutely right. I think we're going to see a lot before the draft even.
Yeah.
I think people don't like their teams. They got to figure out how they can make it better. The draft is going to be a very good draft, especially the very top of it is excellent.
Amazing.
I think so. We're going to see some really good players up top. Um, and I think, and a couple of pivotal teams. Obviously, Dallas has got a lifeline.
But even Dallas,
They
they've got to move some of their bigs. They can't afford to pay Anthony Davis and Derek Lively and Daniel Gafford. Someone's going to be on the move. They're going to have to get out there. They might have to move some other contracts
Well,
around.
yeah, they have to get a guard because Kyrie's going to
Yeah.
be out all
Yeah. I
year,
think that's their
so they
priority.
have to find a player there. But I think you're also going to see what the Spurs going to do with the second pick,
Mm.
and they need to get a center to protect Wemby because
Yeah, but I don't see
Wemby's not a
any
post.
centers being the second pick. So unless they trade
No,
down for multiple
yeah,
picks,
I would
or
take the kid from Duke as the sixth, seventh pick, Maluch. I
yeah,
really
come
like
on.
him. Love him. He's a great kid. Just a fantastic kid and someone who's very physical. I think in the long run would be a good player, but I'm moving down to take him. I'm not taking him at two.
I think it's interesting Harper with that second pick as a point guard. Obviously, you've traded for Fox, and it's
No,
like if you
no,
had
you got
known,
Fox and you have Stefan Castle
yeah,
as a
but
point guard
but
too.
if you had known that you were going to end up with a second overall pick, do you still pull the trigger on that trade for De'Aaron Fox?
Might trade De'Aaron Fox.
There we go. There we go. Anyway, we look forward to that all summer long. But for now, we've got one more game, hopefully, of the conference finals, maybe more if Coach Suhr gets his wishes. If I get my wish, I'll be a free
Yeah.
man for a week starting tomorrow. But we'll see what happens. Knicks Pacers, we'll be back breaking it down. Go ahead,
Yeah,
Coach.
the hoop genius wants a rest. This hoop genius or hoop idiot, whatever you want to call me. I want to see games every damn day because I just know what happens when the summer comes. So, I want to see them, but you need a break. So basketball gods will take care of tomorrow.
We'll see. We will see. We will see. And the genius part is I'm the hoop part. You guys are the genius, the people that are alongside me. I don't claim to be a genius in any way or shape or form. Because if I was a genius, I would find a way to not have to go to bed at 7 a.m. every day. So yeah, that's another episode. Subscribe to the show, YouTube, Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcast from. Check out Coaching You, the Coaching You Plus app. I got that right? Coaching You Plus.
CoachingUplus.com. Yes,
There we go. That's the
CoachingUplus.com.
one.
That's our app. Yes.
Yep. And we got Coaching You
For
Live
all
as
of our
well.
international coaches that are out there from youth all the way up, it's unbelievable. You can really learn a lot.
Yeah, I had a look through it yesterday.
Very
And
interesting. Very cool.
insane. Like
Yeah.
the things that because everyone fans come on the internet and they talk about, oh, fire Tibbs, he doesn't know what he's doing. Fire this guy, fire that guy. But then when you listen to these guys and what they're saying, you realize that they can only do so much. Like these guys know everything there is to possibly know about this game. But it's not 2K25, the best video game in the world, where they can control the players. The players are the ones doing it, right? You can have a great scheme, you can teach a great coverage. But like, for example, tonight, I don't know if there's anything Chris Finch could have done to win this game. And because there are things that people don't realize, he probably told his players to do certain things. They just didn't execute.
Yeah.
Why are they not throwing two defensive shade? Why are they late on the closeouts? Well, do you think Chris Finch just told them to leave him open? Do you know what I mean?
No, 100%. And that's the thing. That and I can say this about the NBA with no reservations at any time. The best coaches in the world are coaching in that league. We have great Euro League coaches, I understand, but the NBA coaches are incredible. They're fabulous. There are Euro League coaches who many of them could coach and should coach in the NBA.
There is one exception. One of, in my opinion, the best coaches in the world, who's not currently coaching in the NBA. Coach Brendan Suhr, live on Hoop Genius podcast. Subscribe to the show. We'll be back tomorrow.
They can't outbid you, man. I'm telling you. Free agency came in play. Yeah.
Well, we'll be back tomorrow breaking down the Knicks and the Pacers. Until next time, get buckets.